Have you ever wondered what real love actually looks like? Not the butterflies, not the fairy tales, but the real thing. It's not about someone saying, "I love you." It's about the questions they're willing to ask. Because someone who truly cares won't just want your attention, they'll want to know your heart. They'll ask what makes you happy, what hurt you, what you need, and where you're going, not to control you, but to grow with you. That's not just love, that's emotional intelligence. And it changes everything when someone genuinely cares. They don't rely on assumptions. They lean in with curiosity, not the shallow kind that skims the surface with obligatory questions, but the kind that's rooted in a desire to really know you. They want to understand the layers. What makes you smile in the middle of a hard day? What excites you before the sun even rises? What small, seemingly insignificant things bring you peace? That level of interest is never accidental. It's intentional, and it speaks louder than any romantic gesture ever could. Most people assume that love is proven through grand declarations or intense chemistry, but what often goes overlooked is how revealing the questions are. And not just any questions, the kind that dive deep into what genuinely brings you joy. These are the conversations that come up when someone wants to be more than a companion. They want to be a contributor to your happiness. They want to be part of what makes your world feel lighter. There's a kind of beauty in being asked what makes you feel alive. It's not about having the right answer. It's about being seen. It's about someone noticing that there's a universe inside you, and they're willing to explore it with patience and awe. They don't guess what you like. They ask. They don't project their preferences onto you. They listen when you speak about the things that light a spark in your eyes. They watch how you come alive when you talk about that book, that song, that place you dream of visiting. And they make a mental note, not out of obligation, but because knowing what makes you happy matters to them. That level of attention is rare. It's not performative. It's not a line from a script or a tactic from a dating guide. It's real, grounded in genuine interest. It's someone saying without words, "I care enough to want to know how you're wired." And more than that, it's someone trying to figure out how to be a source of joy rather than a passive bystander in your life. The truth is, we often settle for being tolerated, admired, or even desired, but rarely do we insist on being understood. And yet, when someone truly wants to understand what makes you happy, they're telling you they see you as more than a placeholder. They see you as a whole person whose inner world deserves exploration. That level of curiosity creates emotional intimacy, the kind of connection that doesn't fade with time because it was never based on surface level attraction to begin with. In those moments when you're asked about your passions, your quirks, or the seemingly random things that bring you joy, pay attention. That's not small talk. That's someone doing the work of learning you. They're mapping out the blueprint of what makes you feel at ease in the world, what brings out your laughter, what comforts you when the noise of life gets too loud. And by asking those questions, they're letting you know they don't want to be another loud voice. They want to be a safe place. It's easy to be distracted by dramatic words or big promises, but the quiet consistency of someone who's interested in your joy speaks volumes. They'll remember how you like your coffee. They'll send you that video because they remembered you loved that obscure band. They'll ask you how your day was, not because they feel obligated to, but because your experience genuinely matters to them. These things may seem small, but they form the foundation of something solid and safe. Sometimes the question comes in subtle forms, like noticing when you're most at peace, or paying attention to how your energy shifts when you talk about certain dreams. It's in those observations that someone's love deepens. Because to love someone's joy is to love them at their best, their most true, They're most free. That's the kind of love that empowers rather than possesses. It uplifts rather than limits. When someone asks what makes you happy, they're doing more than gathering data. They're inviting you to share your soul. And when you answer honestly, when you allow yourself to be known without editing your truth, you give that person the blueprint for loving you right. You open the door to connection that isn't just rooted in mutual attraction or compatibility, but in emotional resonance. There's a quiet magic in knowing you don't have to perform for love. You don't have to contort yourself to fit someone's ideal, because the person asking what makes you happy is already signaling they're interested in your unique design, not a version of you molded by someone else's preferences. They want to learn, not control. They want to see, not shape. They want to celebrate your individuality, not suppress it. That kind of connection is nurturing. It makes you feel safe to be your full self. It invites vulnerability because you sense that your happiness is not a burden, it's a priority. You stop second guessing whether your needs are too much. You stop shrinking to avoid judgment. You start showing up fully because someone's made it clear that knowing what brings you joy is not just a curiosity, it's a goal. And it's in that space where you're truly seen, known, and celebrated that love becomes something transformational, something that doesn't just make you feel loved, but makes you feel free. Real love is not afraid to step into the shadows. It's not interested only in the polished version that smiles at dinner parties or the highlight reel that's posted online. It's drawn to the parts that are often hidden, the ones that carry pain, the ones shaped by disappointment, heartbreak, rejection, or loss. And not because there's a fascination with the drama of it all, but because someone who truly cares understands that love isn't whole if it ignores the wounds. To not afraid to ask what hurt you, because knowing that answer is part of knowing you. There's a quiet kind of strength in asking someone where they've been hurt. It takes more courage than we often realize, both to ask and to answer. It means sitting with someone's truth and not flinching. It means listening, not to fix, but to understand. It means holding space for the parts of a person that were once dismissed, broken, or betrayed, and letting those parts exist without judgment. That level of care doesn't rush. It doesn't gloss over the uncomfortable moments. It listens with intention because it values the full story, not just the easy chapters. Being asked what caused pain is a sign that someone wants to be aware of where not to step. It's not about walking on eggshells. It's about walking with respect. Understanding where someone has been hurt isn't an invitation to pity them or treat them as fragile. It's an invitation to build trust through empathy. It's someone saying, tell me where the cracks are so I don't make them deeper. That's what real love does. It seeks to avoid causing harm, not by guessing, but by asking. So many people move through relationships with assumptions, thinking they know how to show up for others, when in reality, they're stepping into tender spaces blindfolded, and then they wonder why there's tension, silence, or withdrawal. But someone who's intentional doesn't want to guess where the landmines are. They want to know because they want to tread with care. They're not afraid of the complexity that comes with another human being. They understand that every scar tells a story, and every story shapes how someone loves and trusts. There's a world of difference between someone who reacts to your pain with discomfort and someone who responds with curiosity and compassion. One makes you feel like your experiences are a burden. The other makes you feel like your experiences are part of what makes you beautiful. And when someone gently asks about the moments that shaped your fear, your walls, or your hesitation, they're not trying to pry. They're trying to understand, not to hold it over you or analyze you, but so they never become another chapter in that painful history. When someone truly sees you, they don't just focus on the version of you that's thriving. They're just as present when you're guarded, anxious, or uncertain. They understand that the way someone shows up in love is often deeply influenced by the way they've been hurt in the past. And instead of judging that, they make space for it. They ask what hurt you, not because they want to dwell in the past, but because they want to help rewrite the future. One that feels safer, more grounded, more secure. There's healing in simply being asked. So many people go through life feeling like their pain is invisible, like their history is something they have to hide or downplay. But when someone says what hurt you and really means it, it breaks the pattern. It disrupts the silence. It opens a door that says, you don't have to carry this alone. That question, when asked sincerely, has the power to soften even the most hardened hearts. And the healing doesn't come from solving everything. It comes from the presence, from the patience, from the way someone listens and stays even when the truth is messy. They don't offer cliches or quick solutions. They offer consistency. They offer understanding. They offer the kind of presence that says, your pain is safe with me. Understanding someone's pain is a form of love that often goes unnoticed because it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes quietly. It comes in the form of someone remembering what you said triggered your anxiety and avoiding it. It shows up in the way they speak gently when they see you shutting down, or the way they check in when you retreat into yourself. It's in the way they pause before responding, giving you space instead of pressure. These are not grand gestures, but they are powerful ones. It's one thing to want to make someone happy. It's another to care deeply about not becoming the source of their sadness. That requires maturity. It requires emotional intelligence. It requires someone who's willing to do the work of being self-aware and attentive, not just to how they feel, but to how you feel around them. They know that love is not just about adding joy, but also about minimizing harm. It's a different kind of love, when someone makes it their mission to understand the invisible weight you carry, the unspoken fears, the unhealed moments, and not because they see you as broken, but because they see you as real. They know that part of loving someone well is learning how to support them where they're most vulnerable, not avoid it, not pretend it doesn't exist, but hold it with care. That kind of connection is rare, but when it happens, it's unforgettable. It makes you feel less alone in a way that few things can. It reassures you that your past doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you human. And someone who truly cares will never ask about your pain to use it against you. They'll ask because they want to make sure they never become another reason for it. There's a quiet but powerful shift that happens when someone genuinely asks what you need. It's not a question rooted in obligation or driven by guilt. It comes from a deep desire to support in a way that actually matters. There's humility in that kind of question because it acknowledges a simple but often overlooked truth. No one can fully understand another person's inner world without asking. Love doesn't assume. Love doesn't guess. Love seeks clarity, not convenience. Asking what someone needs requires courage. It's a choice to put ego aside and say, your well-being is important enough to me that I want to know how to care for you properly. It's not about getting it perfect, it's about wanting to. That distinction is everything. Because when someone cares enough to ask what you need, emotionally, mentally, or physically, they're signaling that your peace is not an afterthought. It's a priority. They want to show up in the right way, not just the way they've been taught or the way that's comfortable. It's easy to love people the way you prefer to love, to give in ways that make you feel good. But it takes emotional intelligence to pause and say, is this what the other person actually needs from me? That question opens the door to real connection. It transforms the relationship from something self-serving into something collaborative. You can't let the past dictate the future, but you can transform the relationship from something self-serving into something collaborative. It's the difference between trying to impress and genuinely investing. One is performance, The other is partnership. When someone asks what you need, it creates space for honesty, for vulnerability. It invites you to speak up without fear of being too much or too difficult, because that question comes with an unspoken promise. I care enough to adapt. I want to meet you where you are, not where I assume you should be. That's powerful. It tells you that you're not being tolerated, you're being considered. In a world where so many people are used to shrinking, used to silencing themselves to keep the peace or avoid conflict, being invited to express needs feels radical. It feels liberating. It feels safe. And safety is one of the most underrated forms of love. When someone asks what you need, they're not just making a statement about how they feel. They're asking for a way to navigate your emotional landscape without doing harm. That's not weakness, that's strength wrapped in empathy. There's often this idea that if someone really loves you, they should just know. But real relationships don't work that way. People aren't mind readers. No matter how emotionally attuned someone is, they'll never be able to perfectly decode your needs without communication. That's why the question matters, because it says, I won't pretend to know everything. I'll ask and I'll listen. That level of humility builds trust. It makes you feel seen and valued. The act of asking is only the beginning. What follows is just as important. Listening, remembering, adjusting. These are the steps that turn love from a feeling into a practice. Anyone can say the words. Few are willing to put in the work. But when someone takes what you say seriously, when they shift their behavior, respect your boundaries, offer their presence in the way you ask for it, that's when love becomes tangible. That's when it goes from something abstract to something you can actually feel. Asking what someone needs also creates accountability. It sets the tone that love isn't passive, it's active. It requires showing up consistently, not just when it's convenient. It's in the small moments. The way someone speaks to you when you're overwhelmed, the way they hold space when you're processing, the way they respond when you say, I just need quiet today. These are the real tests of love, not the gifts, not the posts, but the presence. There's also a deep respect in that question. It communicates that your preferences, emotions, and inner world are valid. It tells you that your voice matters. In a world where so many people are dismissed, interrupted, or ignored, simply being asked, what do you need, is healing. It invites you to connect with yourself and advocate for what makes you feel most grounded, most loved, most human. Sometimes people confuse loving someone with trying to fix them or rescue them. But that's not what asking is about. It's not about swooping in with solutions or assuming someone is broken. It's about acknowledging that we all have different emotional blueprints. What makes one person feel secure might make another feel smothered. What feels like support to one might feel like pressure to another. The only way to know is to ask, to listen, and then to act with intention. That question also fosters growth. It encourages emotional maturity in both people, because expressing needs takes courage. It requires honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. And meeting someone's needs with empathy requires self-awareness. It means being willing to stretch, to compromise, to evolve. Love that doesn't grow eventually becomes stagnant. But love that's rooted in open dialogue and mutual respect continues to deepen over time. It's also worth noting that what someone needs might change. Life isn't static. People aren't static. And the kind of love that stands the test of time is the one that keeps checking in, that keeps asking, that doesn't rely on outdated information. Because what made someone feel safe last year might not be what they need today. Love that's alive adapts. It doesn't cling to old versions of someone. It learns who they are now. And that's what makes being asked what you need so meaningful. It says, I want to know you as you are today, not just as you were when we met. It means someone's not just invested in the connection, they're invested in your evolution, dot. That's not just support. That's commitment in its highest form. There's a profound peace that comes from knowing you don't have to perform for love. That you don't have to constantly prove your worth or suppress your truth, that you can simply be, and someone will meet you there, not by accident, but by design, because they cared enough to ask, and then they cared enough to follow through. When someone genuinely cares about you, their curiosity reaches far beyond the surface of your day-to-day. They don't just ask what you did today or how your weekend was. They ask where you're going. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, professionally, spiritually. They want to know the direction of your life, not so they can control it, not so they can shape it for you, but because they want to walk beside you as you move toward it. That question, where are you going, isn't just about goals. It's about values, about vision, about alignment. It's easy to get caught up in relationships that live only in the moment. Moments of passion, moments of comfort, moments of distraction. But those connections often feel like floating. There's no anchor, no sense of movement, no shared purpose. They exist day to day, but don't point anywhere. Eventually, you start to feel the drift, like two people on parallel tracks that never quite converge. But when someone asks about your path, your dreams, your future, it's because they're already thinking about where their life intersects with yours. They're not asking for entertainment. They're asking because they see something lasting, something worth building together. Asking where someone is going shows depth. It says, I care about what you want to become. That kind of care is rare. It goes beyond infatuation or admiration. It's a desire to understand the shape of someone's life, what drives them, what lights a fire in their soul, what keeps them awake at night with excitement or fear. And more than just understanding, it's a desire to support it, to uplift, to protect, to nurture the journey without overshadowing it. That question is a powerful sign of emotional maturity. It reflects the understanding that people are not projects, nor are they static. They are evolving, growing, changing. And if a connection is going to be meaningful, it needs to have room for that growth. Asking someone about their future is an act of respect. It says, I don't just want you now, I want to know who you are becoming, and I want to know if I have a place in that future. There's an energy shift when someone talks about their goals and someone listens, really listens, not to judge, not to inject their own opinions, but to understand. It creates an emotional intimacy that few things can match. Because when you open up about your vision for your life, you're revealing some of the most vulnerable parts of yourself. The fears, the desires, the things that matter so deeply, they're hard to put into words. And someone who listens with curiosity and compassion gives you the courage to speak them out loud, sometimes for the first time. That kind of curiosity doesn't come from insecurity or control. It comes from admiration. When someone values your direction, it means they believe in your potential. They see you not just for who you are now, but for who you are capable of becoming. They don't flinch at your ambition, but they believe you are capable of becoming. They don't flinch at your they don't get defensive when you talk about big dreams. They lean in, they ask how they can help, they ask what you need. They want to be part of the process, not to take credit, but because they're invested in your fulfillment. There's something deeply affirming about having your dreams taken seriously, not dismissed as unrealistic, not minimized as distractions, but truly heard and honored. That kind of support breathes life into ambition. So what to do? It creates a sense of safety, of possibility. It removes the pressure to choose between love and growth and replaces it with partnership, a journey where love fuels growth, not competes with it. When someone asks where you're going, they're asking more than just about a career path or a bucket list. They're asking about what kind of life you want to lead, what kind of impact you want to have, what kind of person you're striving to be. They want to know your compass, what guides your decisions, what gives your life meaning, what you're running toward, and why. That kind of question touches something sacred. It brings your deeper self into the light, and it challenges you to reflect on who you are and what matters most to you. It also brings clarity, because when you answer that question, you start to see your own path more clearly. You reconnect with your sense of purpose. You articulate the things you've maybe only felt in your gut. And when someone holds space for you to do that, they become more than just a companion. They become a mirror, reflecting back your strength, your courage, your capacity for greatness. Real support isn't about stepping in front or pushing from behind. It's about walking beside. It's about being present, engaged, and ready to lift when the path gets steep. Someone who wants to know where you're going is preparing for that journey. They're choosing to be someone who shows up in the climb, not just the summit. Someone who encourages rest, who celebrates progress, who doesn't resent the time and energy you invest in your dreams because they know it's a reflection of who you are. Sometimes people fear asking this question because they're afraid the answer won't include them. But that fear keeps love small. Love that expands asks anyway. It takes the risk. It's brave enough to learn the truth, even if that truth invites growth in separate directions. But more often, asking where someone is going strengthens the bond. It opens the door to shared vision, to aligning values, to creating something that lasts, because it's built on understanding and choice, not fantasy or assumption. When that question is asked often, it becomes a rhythm in the relationship, a continual check-in, a way of saying, I see you and I still want to go with you. It becomes a heartbeat, pulsing with the knowledge that life is moving forward. And love has to move with it. It doesn't mean having all the answers. It doesn't mean certainty in every step. It means choosing to ask, choosing to listen, and choosing to keep showing up, even as the map evolves. There's no greater feeling than knowing someone wants to walk with you, not just today, but through the unknown terrain of tomorrow. That someone cares not only about who you've been, but about who you're becoming. That someone looks at your path with wonder, not fear. That's what it means to be truly seen. To be supported not only in stillness, but in motion. And to be loved not in spite of your direction, but because of it.